Ellis, Sawdust, and Ballpeen all sat on the roof, tacking the shingles and whistling while they worked. Not all at the same time, though. That would sound terrible. Only, only Ballpeen was whistling something about winter. It was starting to get stuck in the human's head. Winter wrap up, winter wrap up. No! Get out of my brain, damn you! Only an hour into the shingling, and they were already halfway done. Seeing the progress filled Alice was with a sense of accomplishment. Even Big Boss was starting to lighten up. From the outside, the house looked nearly whole again. With the pace they were working at, they would be done with plenty of time to spare. Unless, of course, any more distractions decide to show up. The incident with Lyra was in the past, at least. It did not go how she thought it would, that's for sure. The unbalanced mare had him backed into a secluded wall, slowly inching closer. She cackled through her clamped teeth, still fixed into a psychotic green froth. By God, actual froth dribbled from the corners of her lips like a rabid animal. Her eyes were still fixated in the frightening stare. That Ellis had never been more unnerved. No, absolutely terrified in all his life. I've got you now. The words exited her mouth like like venom from a fang. What are you gonna do now? Ellis exhaled between pants. Suddenly, Lyra's face returned to a more familiar expression of plain confusion. She wiped the froth from her mouth with her foreleg. I don't know. I didn't think that far. She mused candidly. Ellis needed a distraction. He thought of the best one he'll ever get for the rest of his life. Your fetlocks are untied. They are? Lyra looked down at her green hooves for a good 3 seconds before realizing that she had been tricked. When she looked up, the human was gone. Oh, Celestia, damn it! Ellis still couldn't believe that worked. He also couldn't figure out the deal with that unicorn, but it was over now, and she hasn't come back yet. He suspected that she gave up due to not knowing what her own intentions were. In hindsight, he should have guessed he would have acquired the attention of yet another less than sane pony considering rarity. He just thought it would have been Pinkie Pie. All bets are off, he thought. I wouldn't be surprised if this town's full of nut jobs. Man, Ellis, you're getting all the mares, Sada said as they continued the current conversation. Wish I had that kind of charm. Well, if you know how, you can take it. I don't want it no more. They both laughed. Ellis could even hear Ballpeen stifling a chuckle. You get that treatment back at home, man? Nah, don't get chased by girls. Just zombies. He took another shingle from the pile and began to nail it in. He was halfway through when he looked up and realized that both Sawdust and Ballpeen were giving him strange looks. He got a bit too comfortable. Sorry, and let the captious subject slip, as if he were around Applejack. Zombies? You mean like zombies? Human sighed and put his hammer down. A lot of explaining would have to be done now. Just when he was starting to really enjoy their company, it was like they were already good friends, despite their differences in appearance that would have alienated him from most other ponies. He was sure, though, telling another human about his survival probably would have enthralled them. But as he had learned that with Applejack and Twilight, equestrians seemed to abhor violence and death by instinct. Infected. They came down from the green flu, got sick, and became zombies. Why didn't you get sick? This time it was Pegasus spoke. Ballpeen had been quiet for almost an hour, but he finally found something compelling enough to beat Sawdust to an inquiry. I was lucky, I guess. As it turned out, I'm immune to the virus. That didn't help, though. The infected are just as bad. He picked up his hammer and idly inspected it. He couldn't meet their eyes. I've run for my life more times than I can count. Traveled hundreds of miles to try and get out of there. Dude, that's pretty rough. Sada sympathized. I wasn't the only one, though. I met some other people like me. Immune. We stuck together and helped each other out. It all worked out in the end. Well, at least for me. The unicorn glanced at the unshingled portion of the roof. We got time, man. And tell us about him. Ellis smiled at himself, even though it was hell on earth. He cherished the time he spent with those three. Coach and Rochelle were fine from the start. Nick, however, was a snarky and ill-humored fellow. Originally, he planned to stick with them for a short time, then ditch and stake it out on his own to get back to his old way of life. The fuck just happened? Ellis didn't particularly like him at first. He tried to be friendly during the short resting periods in the safe houses, but Nick only made fun of him and taunted his southern ethnicity. Over the weeks of going from place to place, escaping one city after another, Nick had come to respect him and his fellow teammates. Hell, Ellis remembered one time when, after he had been near strangled by a smoker and incapacitated to the ground, he had referred to Ellis as a friend. As the mechanic helped him off the ground and patched his wounds, he had changed begrudgingly. Yes, but it was still a good ways away from what he used to be like. They all changed a great deal, even Ellis. It should be mentioned that he actually enjoyed killing infected to a point, as long as he wasn't on the receiving end of the punishment. But after being knocked down, burned with acid, ridden by a jockey into a blazing fire, and nearly torn apart by a witch over the course of several days, he just couldn't find the fun in it anymore. Then came near death, being zapped back to life, being rescued again and again, only to be sucked back down. Ellis just wanted out. His friends probably thought the same, but by the time they were at the bridge, they were on their last legs. They all knew they couldn't take another plunge back into it. Sawdust and Ballpeen still stared at him expectantly. Ellis nodded his head. If y'all say so, but it's a long story. Applejack set her salad bag down of freshly remade gardening tools from the smithy, approached the familiar sight of home, sweet home, after a morning of traveling back and forth to and from Ponyville. She was eager to return to her apple bucking. Besides seeing Ellis and convincing Pink Pie to come out of her room, she had mildly pleasant time with Wrought Iron. The old unicorn spent most of his days at his sweltering forge, making shoes, tools, and other metalwork goods. He was glad to see Applejack, Granny Smith's granddaughter. He and Granny were longtime friends, but to Applejack it seemed that all old ponies knew each other. Any mare or stallion past 60 could come to the farm, and the aged matriarch would greet them like a long-lost friend. He asked how she was doing, how old were the kids, and other old pony questions. Despite his stereotypical behavior, he was a kind and happy fellow. The farm pony always thought of him as what Dominic would have turned out to be if he hadn't spent most of his life in seclusion. He worried about the alchemist a lot, even though he's long since come to terms with himself. She still suspected that he clung to some of his emotional turmoil, despite his irrationality, his inconsistency, his lack of personal hygiene. She still thought well of him. Applejack entered the house and went to the kitchen. Sure enough, there was Granny Smith. She was making her famous pie crusts for her even more famous apple pies, trimming the edges of the thin dough while rotating the pie tin. Hey, Granny. Granny Smith jumped a little to surprise. She set the kitchen knife down. Oh, sweetie, you know better than to sneak up on me like that. I can't really do it. I can't really do an old lady voice. Sorry. Applejack knew she wasn't angry. She knew that she was easily startled due to her inattention. So she just always said that as a sort of running joke. She readjusted her thick cat's eye glasses. So how's our little traveler doing? What news from yonder? Shut up. I'm all done with my I'm all, my I'm all done with my trip to Ponyville, Randy. Got your gardening tools all fixed up. She set her salad bags on the counter and began to unpack. Thank you, dear. How's Iron doing these days? He's all fine and dandy. Says he's looking forward to your pies. Granny Smith smiled. Oh, that old coot. I swear he loves my pies as much as he loves his wife. That's all I hear him talk about. Applejack chuckled. Yeah, that's about half of it. She set down the grocery items she picked up while she was in town. Might as well take care of the spices while she was there, she thought. With only the tools in her bag now, she set off to put them in the shed. Hold up, Granny called as she began to resume her trimming. The little one was all excited about something to do with your new friend. She's been bouncing up and down in my kitchen for a good while. She got something to show you, I think. Probably the wallet, she thought, asking anything will get her excited. All right, I'll go see her before I get back to work. Applejack slid the door of Apple Bloom's bedroom open. Small Philly was coloring. Papers and all spectrum of crayons were strewn across the floor in a tight pile surrounding her. She looked up from her artwork and smiled as her older sister entered the room, a dark blue stick of hardened wax still in her teeth. Hey there, sis, the older one greeted. Applejack, I wanted to show you something. And I'm here to see, she returned. Did you like Ellis's wallet? Well, I was kind of boring, to be honest. It was just weird pieces of green paper and some flat bits of plastic, she said, feeling sorry for not approaching the human's thoughtfulness enough. But I did find a cool picture. She trotted over to the nightstand and picked up the photo in her teeth. Applejack met her halfway to see what she had acquired. It was a photo, all right. She studied it with an interest as Apple Bloom held it steadily between her lips. She could recognize Ellis in it, but there was another human next to him. He's Ellis and his friend, I think. Applejack had an idea of who it was. The Keith fellow that the human constantly talked about. She's heard countless stories of him and how he gets brutalized within an inch of his life almost every other day. Ellis talked about his like he was an authentic friend. When look at the photo, they looked happy together. Keith must have unnatural tolerance of Ellis's antics. That other human's name is Keith. Ellis talks about him a lot. Keith, Apple Bloom repeated. Humans have weird names. What do you think his special talent is? Indestructibility, probably. But if this is his best friend, why didn't he come to question with Ellis? At first, Applejack merely regarded the question with a simple shrug, leaving out Bloom to think it over on her own. The others had said goodbye and left her little sister to her artistic hobby. As she walked down the hallway to finally head into the grove and do a lot on his day's work, the question prospectively came up in her thought process again. What happened to Keith? Ellis loved talking about him, but when he was telling the farm pony about his time during the apocalypse, he only mentioned his other friends. Keith never came up. What happened to him? Was he dead? Applejack quickly shoved the whole thought process out of her mind. Ellis always referred to Keith as in present tense, which means he's still alive. Did they go separate ways? Not likely. She couldn't find a reason why they would break their close lifetime friendship so willingly. It just didn't make sense. Applejack donned her yoke and hitched the apple cart containing stacks of wooden buckets exiting the cool shade of the barn. She trudged out into Celestia's solar warmth and headed to the path that traversed the rolling hills covered in countless apple trees. There was plenty of work to be done, and the world waited for no pony. The questions she had unwittingly instated into her mind still nagged at her. She found herself drumming up possibilities and scenarios. Maybe he was always on vacation. Did he move out of Savannah? Did he not survive? Her heart skipped a beat. She nearly forgot to breathe and stumbled to the ground. Cart still in hall, staring blankly at the sun-baked dust that caked the dirt path. She has never considered death to be a possibility. Not once. not even on her worst days. And it still came up in her mind twice. What the hey is wrong with me? All of Ellis's talks about death and blood and killing must be getting to her nerves. Not even the most dismal of equestrian fiction has ever gone that dark. She once read a horror story about zombies, undead ponies that shambled slowly to an isolated farm, where the protagonist had to survive and find a magical cure to end the infestation. As a filly, the book gave her nightmares for a good week. She trembled under her bed sheets and took wary glances outside the window. Now that she was older, than more mature, those stories seemed like a load of hogwash. They were cheesy and entirely implausible. The story even had a happy end. All the ponies were cured and they returned home to their families. Ellis's story had no happy ending. Thousands of humans infected and roaming for flesh. There was no cure. He had implicitly mentioned so, but telling her that the people that he called the military switched to the final solution and began dropping explosives from metal flyers into plagued cities. None of them got better. None of them went home to their families. They were already dead to the rest of the world. Applejack told Ellis to stop at that point in his story, and he kindly obeyed. She couldn't bear to hear any more. Such depressing news from such a carefree person. He explained it all as if it were as tragic as a small foal's sandcastle had been wrecked by a strong gust of wind. He didn't seem fazed by the fact that the population of humans that outnumbered equestrians several times over slowly became mindless killers and lost all their identity. Was death such a common thing for him that it just didn't matter? Was his home so utterly dystopian that he just accepted those apparent atrocities as a fact of life? He was an enigma. Applejack's mind churned as she instinctually clopped to her destination. She couldn't figure out how he could be so kind, cheerful, humorous after all that. His given insight only made it more puzzling. She tried to imagine that she would feel in that sort of situation in an attempt to further understand. She tried to imagine all the Ponyville getting violently sick, slowly losing their intelligence. She saw the Royal Guard blockading the traveling routes to all other pony settlements, letting no pony get in or out of for a reason they would not disclose. She thought of her friends. Oh, Celestia. Applejack hurriedly unhitched herself from the cart and removed her yoke in a blur of motion. She drug a stack of collection buckets and hastily placed them around the first tree of the day. The apples all seemed to hang heavy and expectant. She stopped, trying to collect herself and silence her horrific imaginings. Twilight, Pinky, Fluttershy, Dash, Rarity. She couldn't imagine losing them. They were a second family to her. She owed it to herself to always think well of them. Always think well of them. The images came. She couldn't hold them back. It was like a dangerous overflow of water splashing over the rim of a tense and crumbling dam. She imagined Rainbow Dash moving towards her, not as a friend who wants to talk about her day or ask her to hang out, but as a mindless creature who was not Dash, only moaned for her flesh. Dash was gone. Applejack felt hot tears well up in her bottom of her eyelids. She tried to think of something else, something pleasant and Saccarian. Twilight, she pictured Twilight humming, growing a cheerful tone as she hungrily rearranged some books in her library shelves, eyes glazed over and bloodshot, empty of the bright and wonderful shine that once existed between them. Why are you even in here if you're frickin'... I'm reading here, and that just is now gonna be put in the recording, whatever. Sorry, people. She gasped as she bucked the tree much harder than she intended to. The bark chipped and flew off like shrapnel. The red and yellow fruits loosened and dropped off the branches all at once, falling into her buckets and the ground around them. She winced at the small muscle tear she acquired from the hairless overexertion. Applejack strained her brow as she tried to bury the gruesome imagery being conjured up by her renegade imagination. She thought of the calm, serene scene of Fluttershy bringing a basket of carrots to feed her rabbits, blood dribbling from her scarlet-stained teeth. No, 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 no! It stuck to her mind like a vicious glue. As she readied herself to harvest the next tree, she fought it. She fought the blackened pseudo realities down with every bit of mental strength that she could draw. She beat it down every inch of the way as beat it down. Stop! As her muscle memory took over the repetitive task of apple bucking for her. Her perception became cloudy through the blurry, tear-slick windows of her emerald eyes. Ever so slowly but surely, the sun sank into the horizon. So then the bridge dropped, and we went no running. Shot a few dozen as we went, but mostly we were focused on getting to the other side. Despite his apprehensions, both Sawdust and Ballpeen proved to be a fascinated audience with open ears and wide eyes. They listened to his stories between each short time they had to hammer in shingles. For Ellis, it was mostly the short version. He left out a lot of he left out a lot of stuff that Applejack was really uncomfortable with when he told it to her. Not a lot of good things to say about a zombie apocalypse, that's for sure. So we stopped to rest about halfway through when yet another tank came along. This one was a mean one. We all poured the heat on him, but then for whatever reason he came after me, and I dropped my rifle and ran for my life. I don't know exactly what happened, but there was an explosion and I was thrown off the bridge. What happened next? Ballpeen asked, absorbing the human saga. He asked the most questions of the two. Ellis may have finally brought the timid Pegasus out of his shell. I honestly don't know. I remember falling, seeing the water, and the rest is just gone from my mind. I wound up here, more specifically at Applejack's Grove. Sawdust couldn't suspend his disbelief any longer. What? You're saying you fell off a bridge and somehow ended up in Equestria? Yeah, can't explain it. It just kinda happened. So you didn't get here by a botched spell or anything? Not that I know of. No space travel? Nope. No teleportation device? Nope. Where the hell are you going with that? The unicorn shrugged. Things don't happen for no reason, man. I've heard worse ways for something like that to happen. God damn it, I've heard worse ways for something like that to happen, Ballpeen added. Well, if I had a better explanation, I wouldn't withhold it. Ellis removed another shingle from the container and gripped his hammer. But there were no empty spaces left. Huh. Looks like we're done. Big Boss withdrew himself once more from his frustration-thick office trailer and nearly flipped at what he beheld. Great Tia! He exclaimed as Ellis and Sawdust made their way down the ladder while Ballpeen floated to the ground. Done already! The ashen flyer grounded himself with an exuberant nod. The other two reached the foot of the wooden rungs and hopped off, vocalizing their confirmation. That was fast, Boss complimented in the only way he could by shouting at the top of his lungs. Ellis massaged his ringing ears. I'm really proud of you, boys. Pack it up, and you have the rest of the day off. Dismissed. Construction pony set to putting the equipment away in the nearby carts. Ballpeen gathered the blueprints, hammers, saws, and measuring equipment while Sawdust levitated the ladder to be tied to the horse-drawn vehicle. Ellis was about to follow them and offer his assistance when... Hold on. Ellis! He whirled around on one foot and faced the vociferous stallion. Yes, sir? Yes, sir? At ease, Boss sighed and relaxed. You don't really need to call me Sir, Ellis. I apologize for all that yelling. His sincerity, but put Ellis off guard. I'm only like that when my blood is up. You know how it is. Sure, sure. His eyes narrowed. Some of the earlier animosity returned. Don't let me catch you slacking off, though. He even flinched, but he kept his composure for the most part. You won't see me doing any of that, no sir. Good. So, anyways, the mayor passed this off to me to give to you at the end of the day. He held off a small, lumpy sack in his mouth. He also took the underside of the bag in his hand. It was a bag of coins by the feel. The weight surprised him. This is just some bits to get you started off, since you probably don't have any local money. This should tide you over till your next payday. Gingerly, he opened a bag and peeked into its contents. His eyes widened considerably. Oh shit, man! This is real gold! Yeah, that's what bits are made of. Don't you think this is a little generous? This'll last me a year. The boss chuckled. That'll get you 4 loaves of bread and a jug of milk. Ellis sighed and clenched the drawstrings. Figures. You could blame it on the economy. Ellis gained a sudden thought, accompanied by a feeling of guilt. Don't sit there. I don't sit too good with taking taxpayer money. You know. He stuck to his family creed with no government handouts. You gotta earn it yourself, his mom would say. Ellis couldn't care much. Money was money, but his mother drilled the mantra into his head all the time. He wouldn't feel comfortable going back on her word. The brown earth pony shook his head. This is from Miss Mare's own trunk. Miss Mare's own trunk, Ellis. The treasury has all other things to fund, like the whole rebuilding project. That was a bit of an astonishment. Last time he left her, she acted like she wanted nothing to do with the human. Ellis had put so much stress on her already enervated mind, but she hid her frustration from the other as well. Public image must be maintained after all, but when they were alone, the mayor nearly exploded at him. He assumed that she felt nothing but hatred for Ellis's regard. He bounced the cloth bag in his hand a bit with a smile. Guess she had a change of heart. She also wants you to pay her back in full with interest. Never mind. That's all I have for you. Good job today. By the way, you go enjoy yourself. His expression darkened. It's back to the desk for me. Big Boss trotted back to his trailer and shut the door behind him. Ellis lingered in place for a few seconds, examining the coin sack in his palm with hazy interest. Dude, Ellis! Sawdust broke the human's musing abruptly. Ellis turned to the unicorn. Help me with some of these. You take the sawhorses. Sure thing. He stuffed the bag in his spacious overall pocket and hoisted the 2 wooden trestles under his arms. As he approached the cart, Sawdust noticed the jingling sound emanating from his pants. What did Big Boss want from you? Ellis set the frames in the cart's bed before answering. The mayor gave me a little early pay. Good thing, too. Darn near completely forgot that I'm flat broke here. Cool beans, man. The trio continued to pack away the clearing of their equipment into 2 carts parked on the curb. During that process, Ellis had time to appreciate the work they completed. It seemed like months ago that the roof looked like a mangled hole, but no longer. One could hardly tell if it had been damaged at all. It was good as new. He regretted not taking before and after pictures. Hey, Ellis. Sawdust got his attention after they loaded everything up. What are you gonna do now? I don't know. I guess I'll head on back to AJ's farm. Oh, come on, man. Daddy's still young. You haven't been around Ponyville that much. We're not letting you go after that story you told us. You can hang out with us for the rest of the day. Ellis shifted on his feet. I guess I could. He honestly liked the 2 coworkers, but he couldn't help the feeling of apprehension that crept into his head. Why did it feel like he was doing something wrong? Applejack wouldn't expect him for the rest of the day, and she would probably understand it if he wanted to do a few things on his own. He shouldn't be feeling bad for spending some time away from her. He felt like he owed her something. Maybe another story from Savannah? He could tell her the remote-controlled plane and bottle rocket story to make up. Oh man, that one brought a grin to his face. Awesome. Ballpeen, backed from returning his blueprints to the office trailer, flew upside, flew up beside Sawdust. Hey, Peen, the unicorn hailed. We're gonna go out into town. Ellis is coming with us. He is? The young Pegasus became more enthusiastic than Ellis had seen him all day. What are we doing first? Sawdust pondered for a moment. I have no idea. They all sat in silence. Bowling, suggested Ballpeen. Bowling. Bowling, repeated Ellis. Bowling, re-enunciated Sawdust. Ellis nodded his head. Bowling. Bowling? Bowling. God damn it. Sawdust agreed. They all paused and looked at each other. Bowling! They cheered in unison. The cacophonous clatter resonated throughout the building, accompanied by other similar sounds coming from the other lanes. Ellis frowned. Another split. It was like he was cursed or something. His second try left 2 pins unknocked. Bummer, Sawdust said apologetically. Not a good thing coming from him. He was whining. He was winning. If only his friend could see him now, being beaten at bowling by a pony. Meanwhile, Ballpeen clutched the heavy resin-coated ball gracelessly in his hooves while balancing on his hind legs. With a soft grunt, he lightly tossed the ball forward. It glided forward on the slick course of the few feet. They promptly veered off into the gutter, the Pegasus side. Ellis was thankful he wasn't as in dead last. Man, I haven't gone bowling in so long. The alley in Sylvania is only open in the fall and winter time. I never knew exactly why it was a family-owned alley and they went somewhere else during the summer or something. The pins on the end of the lane were magically reset. Ballpeen's ball ejected from a chute into a holding crevice, clacking next to Sawdust's and Ellis's. This place is open all year round, except a week or two during the holidays. It's been me and Peen's favorite spot to hang out. The construction unicorn stood up and claimed his ball with his orange-colored magic. To us, didn't seem fair to other ponies that he had. To us, it didn't seem fair that he had magic and they had to use their hooves in several awkward fashions. It was more for the socializing rather than the playing, really. The Pegasus didn't seem to mind. How long have you two known each other? Ellis asked as Sawdust. Shh! Ellis asked as Sawdust blasted away another spare. He penciled in the score on the score sheet. Me and him? Oh, a few years. When we started working for Big Boss, he's a bit of a shut-in. If he haven't already guessed, I'm right here, man. I'm right here, man, he called from the seat next to his friend. And I'm right here, Sawdust gestured to all of himself like it was a catchphrase shared between the two. He turned back to Ellis. It took a while, but he's a good guy to be friends with. He's just short of words. Ellis nodded. Shut up. Ellis nodded. It's nice to be working with both of y'all. Couldn't have asked for a better job. What about Applejack's farm? Well, to be honest, I probably would have gotten steak apples if I went with that. Fair enough. Ellis stood up and grabbed his ball by the finger holds. He stopped himself as a question hit him like a truck. Hey, why do these have holes for your fingers if you... Shh. Hey, why do these have holes for fingers if you all have hooves? Sawdust shook his head. It's not a very good idea to ask those kind of questions. Why is that? Because you're probably ended up like Lyra. Let it be known that on the Rapture's day, someone, more specifically some pony, successfully gave Ellis a good reason to stop talking. The human lined up his feet took a fluid step forward, swung the weighty orb in an arc behind his back, and jumped as a sudden sound jarred him in concentration just as he released the ball. "It's him!" shouted two young girly voices. The ball plunked into the side canal. Ellis groaned and turned around. Two little fillies stared in awe at the awe of the tall figure with their shimmering saucer-like eyes. It was an alabaster unicorn in a multicolored curl hair. The other was an orange Pegasus. Oh my god, with purple hair and chicken-sized wings. Chicken-sized. God damn it. Ellis had not seen them before. "You're the new human guy," said the orange one. Applebloom told us about you," the other one squeaked. "She said you were a cool alien from that fought monsters and stuff." Ellis shrugged. "Close enough." "I'm Scootaloo, and I'm Sweetie Belle. Nice to meet you." He bent down and took each of their tiny hooves in his thumb and index finger and gave it a soft wiggle. "So you're Applebloom's friends. I think she may have mentioned you once or twice." In reality, Applebloom spoke about them non-stop for about an hour, going on about their adventures and mishaps. Ellis kind of spaced out for most of that, but hey, who would blame him for trying? "Oh, hello there," said a more mature voice behind the two fillies. A dark purple mare trotted up. Oh, to Ellis's eye level. "They're with me. I'm Cheerily, their school teacher. Pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to meet you too, ma'am." He decided that he liked Cheerily. She had a friendly smile and a calm voice, even when she had two hyperactive children under her watch. "I'm just chaperoning these two while we go bowling. They can't be here on their own anymore." She shot a glare at Scootaloo, who shrank with a guilty smile. "I'm actually glad I had a chance to meet you, Ellis. I've heard about you. Things like this don't really happen in Ponyville very often." Have you met Rainbow Dash yet?" pipped the tiny Pegasus. Isn't she awesome?" "Yeah, she tried to eat my hand. She tried. Yeah, she tried to eat my hand and gave me a good run through the town." Ellis thought, but did not vocalize. Instead, he nodded and turned back to Cheerily. "So did you want to ask me a few questions?" Ellis could assume as much. Almost every pony he met so far were not short on trivia. He might as well pick up local pronouns while he was at it. "I have a few, but I can wait until you're done with your game." She pointed her hoof at Ellis's lane. Sawdust and Ballpeen were waiting impatiently for him to take his turn. "Oh, right." He bounded off to make his throw. Cheerily called after him, "I'll be over at the far lane. I look forward to talking to you."